And our conversation with Wade McElhaney, the principal at the Indiana Senior High, is brought to you by Marcus and Mack, a law firm representing injured people. And he is on the telephone with us right now. How are you?
I'm doing well, Todd. Thanks so much for having me this morning, and hoping you and all your listeners are safe and healthy and happy.
Yeah, well, anytime I see you, you're usually surrounded by a big group of students and a teacher or two, and you're here in the studio with me. You've got a big thing to live up to here this morning.
I know. I mean, right now, what I'm working with is just the thoughts of a lot of students, and although that's comforting, it's not the same.
Yeah. Well, there have been changes all across the educational landscape for you and for everybody else involved in education, the students, the parents, the schools just themselves. So let's talk a little bit about this morning. Of course, COVID-19 has changed everything. So first of all, let's talk about what has happened there at Indiana Senior High School and how it is that you go about your job every day.
Well, it's been a real challenge. I say joyfully exhausting, and meeting these ever-changing situations and circumstances. But we move forward, keeping the goal in mind that what we do is for the learning and the achieving and the well-being of our students. So that's our motivation, and that's what keeps us going.
Pretty satisfied. I talked yesterday with Superintendent Michael Vukovich. He was just blown away by the fact that the response to the online offerings and the educational offerings by the students it's been out of the world, hasn't it?
It has, and that's a testament, I believe, of our faculty and our staff, who a big part of their job is building those positive relationships and rapport with students, and the responses that they are getting, I think, is the carryover. It's the unintended positive results of how much they care about our students and the lengths and depths to which they go to make that possible for our kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have goals that you would like to see happen, and those aren't necessarily expectations, but I'm sure this is exceeding every expectation.
It is in that regard, and to see the students respond in such a way, for learning's sake, knowing that education is the key. It's one of the flatteners for them to compete in the world that's coming, especially for our soon-to-be graduates.
Yeah, well, that's one of the challenges, of course, of being a senior high principal is you've got a senior class that is, especially at this time of the year, preparing for the end of their scholastic careers. It's such a big moment in their lives, and they're getting ready, and they are really putting the finishing touches on their school careers. At the same time, you've got students in younger grades who are just, they're in the middle of it, or they're just getting started on what really is a key moment for them. This is the time when they're deciding upon some educational goals or some life goals and looking at the classes that are going to help them to get that way. So tell me about how you have worked within that sort of a framework within what you do at Indiana Senior High.
Absolutely. Our first concern, of course, is the well-being and the learning of our students, and it was an incredible feat by this district, by the school community, by our students, our faculty, our staff, to be able to transform an educational program within a very short amount of time. Along with that, aside from the mechanics and the expectations, rolling out, in the background is this working for kids? Are we doing the best job we can so that they are going to be prepared not only for next year, but like you said, life's goals? And as disappointing and frustrating as it is, I can see this being very transforming for our educational system, but also for those students, because they are experiencing a lot of first, and they are responding in an incredible way. I'm working closely with a lot of our senior class advisors and end-of-year coordinators, and they in turn are reaching out to their students. So it's important for the students to have some input and say in how these things can go and be affected by that. And they are coming up with some fantastic ideas. So the first stage was, what does the educational program, what is it going to look like, and how are we going to educate kids in the best interest of their learning, achieving, and well-being? But then you have the next level. It's that connectivity with the school community, and that's something that I think our high school and many high schools that pride themselves on is the connectivity and community that goes on under our roof. Well, we're not here under our roof. However, that's still an important part of the educational experience. So I was speaking with Devin Duffy and Matt Neal, who are co-leadership seminar class advisors, and working with those students in those leadership positions. And those kids have come up with wonderful ideas of how to keep our students connected to the school community and to each other with purpose. And they are. I heard about some of their ideas, and very proud of their work. And it's really interesting. You're seeing, in the media. I believe that recently it was a 7-year-old Ben Franklin student who has said, what, this experience is not going to define me, but rather we're going to define our own experience facing it. And I see that occurring within the ranks of our student body here at the senior high school. And I think we have a very socially aware and responsive group of seniors and student body here at the senior high school. So they are really rising to that occasion, to help us evolve this system. Someone once told me, you cannot create and perfect at the same time. And I think, you have to put in perspective and realize that what you do today is going to be an opportunity to make it better for tomorrow. But the important thing is to get it moving, take that first step. And so many first steps have been taken here at the senior high school by those advisors, coordinators, and those students that it is amazing to see a school community rise to the challenge.
Once you take those steps, of course, those first steps, they are followed by the subsequent steps. And I'm sure that you're learning everything you can from the first portion of your educational plan. Talk about the practical aspects of how Indiana school district as a whole and senior high in particular is approaching this. The distance learning, the communication, the grading of the students, which is, Indiana Senior High chose the path that I think most school districts did with the compassion versus compliance issue. Talk about all of that.
I will, and that, I give a lot of credit to Mr. Vukovic and our central office team in setting the tone that, there's a lot that is going on about which we know and we don't know. We see rising unemployment that is occurring within our own community. So there's going to be natural stressors of those economic conditions at home, but also the change in the ways in which, how the family dynamic is going to be changed during the school day, because, we have established routines and practices, and people build their structures and much of their life's routines around that, and that has been turned upside down. And then with distance learning, I think part of the challenge is that when you have established routines and practices for the regular school day, regular school environment, and you've had opportunities to really make those run well, you have high expectations, and that's what drives that. And then you get a situation that turns things upside down, and you want to be able to apply those same level of expectations to what you were doing. It can be frustrating, but in a good way. It's positive tension. So in the way we set out, we thought, this isn't the student's fault that occurred, what has occurred. And we also know that we have to progress their learning. So we started out with review and enrichment activities, but we also understand that students have a hunger to learn, and that the curriculum and the teaching and the learning have to continue. So we're working toward making it so that those students minimally do not regress, but give opportunities also to enrich their learning by pushing forward in the curriculum, but doing it in a way that's understandable and flexible to the needs of our kids and our families.
I know you have, of course, short-term goals that you'd like to see for the rest of this academic year, and the summertime is going to be a big period of assessment and reassessment and maybe adjustment in the way that we look at things. And new contingencies, all of those things. But just for the short term, between now and the end of the school year, what are your thoughts? What would you like to see happening within the educational environment at Indiana Senior High?
Well, you try to look for the positives in challenging situations, and I think that this experience, that whether it's our students, our teachers, our staff are going through, is going to add to their professional repertoire of instructional strategies. I think also what has become so evident, and I talked about it earlier, is that rapport and relationship that our faculty and staff have with students. I think it really will give us pause because, yes, the activities and the opportunities themselves may be educational, but it's the rapport and relationship with the adults in our building that's inspirational. And I think that that is going to become ever so important in the near future in when we return to school. What will that look like? And hopefully that we have all had enough of an experience of distance learning that it will really enhance or give pause for, when people look at cyber schools and so forth, because I'm very proud of what our school and what our district is doing. And I know the level of attention that's been transferred to that makes our school stand out in that respect. And many public schools are doing that right now. So I think it's going to increase the value of what we do, and in as much as its purpose, its relationship and relevance to what kids are learning. As far as the year-end activities, working with all those senior coordinators and advisors, those year-end activities, such as prom, graduation, baccalaureate, senior awards assembly. How do we do that, and how do we do it differently? But yet, can it be meaningful and impacting for the kids and their families?
Yeah, those are all things that I'm sure you're working hard to resolve. And I know in our closing moments here with Principal Wade McElhaney, the Indiana Senior High School, that you're looking around at the school and within the online offerings, and you really, there are people that are just worthy of our admiration and appreciation for what they're doing.
Oh, absolutely. There is so much going on behind the scenes. Maybe the work day for many educators was 7:30, well, for senior high school, 7:20 to 3:20, plus they did extracurriculars. But it's not uncommon to be talking and communicating with our faculty and staff, and they are working because they know that there's a need to communicate also with parents and guardians beyond the work hours, and it has become more than a full-time job, and beyond is, I believe, testing their resolve, but we have a good infrastructure in place that allows that to be built on. And then now we're trying to find and sort and prioritize our ways that this asynchronous learning is something different. It isn't connected to bells, buzzers, and schedules, etc., and that it is something for many faculty who already did it, but it's becoming ever so important now that that type of communications and interactions go on way beyond 3:30 each day.
Yeah, absolutely. Wade McElhaney, thanks for spending some time with us talking about Indiana Senior High School. And I know that from another standpoint, you're a dad looking forward to your own son's graduation, so that's a whole nother angle at it for you.
This is true, and we'll get through it. And I always tell them, grow where your feet are planted, accept all that is given to you, and never take anything that it isn't.
Wade, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Hey, Todd, I appreciate it very much, too. Stay healthy, happy, safe to you and all your listeners, and thanks for the opportunity to be able to talk this morning.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. You too.